3, 2, 1.
Here we go!
3, 2, 1.
Here we go!
Three, two, one.
Here we go! Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Heroes from Horsepower from the Motorsports Hall of Fame of America. A few months ago, we visited with Ohio George Montgomery live from his speed shop in Dayton, Ohio. And now we are very excited to take things off-road. We're honoring a man so good, they gave him his own video game. His name, the one and only Ironman Stewart. Now, this production's being done virtually, obviously, and we're spanning the country from coast to coast, from California to Florida, and everywhere in between, and we welcome everyone who's joined us today. Our webcast today includes some of the greatest stars in the sport of off-road racing, and we're so excited to have Toyota Racing supporting us as they have supported Ivan's career for a very long time. This stream is presented by Toyota Racing and is a product and sponsor of the Motorsports Hall of Fame of America. I'm Marty Reid. It's an honor for me to be a part of this. I've known Ivan Stewart since 1984. I don't think either one of us really wants to admit it's been that long. But before we introduce him formally, let's take a quick look back on the career of the Ironman.
20 years ago, Ivan Stewart first drove the Baja 500 solo and earned the Ironman award and also picked up the nickname that he carries to this day. Stewart, don't get the thing upside down before you ever get it out of town.
When he's cruising on the highway, we can have a good conversation with him without a bunch of engine noise and racing cars. Copy that.
Talk before the race that Ivan might not be feeling 100%. Naturally, the Ironman denied it and said, nah, I feel great. Meanwhile, progress report on Ivan Stewart trying to clinch the championship with a race still to go. He's running third despite the misfiring engine. Here is the moment in which the race and the championship were secured. Ivan Stewart claims the Laughlin Desert Challenge, and with it the $50,000 prize for the trophy truck title.
Let's welcome one of the newest members of the Motorsports Hall of Fame, Ivan the Ironman Stewart. What a look back at an incredible career, Ivan. First off, thanks for being here with us and looking back on some of those memories. What's it bring back to?
Oh, fantastic, Marty. I sit here and think that I've really lived a life of a dream. I've had every goal that I really wanted in life has come true. The people I've met, the friends I've got and had over many, many years, including every one of you guys on the panel here, that is second to none. I don't know how I could have had anything in my life could have been better than what I've had in my motorsports events, especially with you guys.
I want to go back to the beginning of your career. Most people don't realize in the early days, you were actually petrified of being in front of a crowd or a microphone. Take us through those days and how you overcame it.
Well, it was tough because as you say, I didn't really have any experience at all. It was Mickey Thompson who took me aside after we started the Mickey Thompson series. Mickey Thompson took me aside and said, Ivan, you really need to go down and do some Dale Carnegie training or something, because I was really terrified. I would hide from speaking in front of a group of people or anything like that, a television interview, whatever it was. So anyway, that really helped. Mickey really helped me actually in a lot of different ways. He was one of my heroes growing up in the motorsporting business. That he had done so much for the sport, and he really helped me.
Well, there's a lot of people that are petrified of being in front of a crowd or a microphone, but was there ever any fear when you were behind the wheel?
No, the only fear I really had was I rode with Butch Arciero one time, and that was pretty darn scary, let me tell you. And then I thought about riding with Robby Gordon, and that just petrified me. Other than that, I've come up, I tell you, probably the closest I ever came to really hurting myself and getting hurt was racing through a little town in Ojos Negros. This is somewhere back in the 80s, and probably doing 70 or 80 miles an hour chasing the guy in front of me. If you're an off-road racing, if you're going to get to the front, you've got to pass people continually. But I almost ran into the back of like a 2-ton truck that was parked on the side of the road, and that really scared me. But it went by pretty quick. But riding with Butch, that was scary, and then thinking about riding with Robby is pretty terrifying.
Well, we'll give them both an opportunity to respond to that a little bit later. But you were known for driving the 1,000 miles in the Baja Desert alone. People will probably want to know, how did you keep from falling asleep, getting so fatigued that you just literally drove off the course?
Well, I tell people, they ask me that a lot. That's probably one of the most asked questions. I tell them, say, look, whenever the next time you're driving long distance, Robby, you might take note of this too. You probably already do this, but when you start getting sleepy, it's 2 o'clock in the morning, you've been racing all day and all night long, and your eyes are starting to close. You just take your throttle and you just push that down to the floor and you just hold it. And the faster we go, the bigger your eyes will get. You won't be falling asleep. So that's the way I did it. Isn't that right, Butch?
Yeah, that's true.
That was a secret. No, I'm kidding about that part of it. But no, I think for me, I was just always motivated and so thrilled to be there. And, I didn't want to let anybody down. I couldn't handle it if I fall asleep. But, when you're racing, if you're doing well, and these guys will agree with me that if you're doing well, you're excited, you're wired, you want to get the job done. So really, if you broke down, the problem is if you broke down and you had to change a transmission, you've been out there for a long time and, you got cactus in your leg and you're tired and you're not going to win, then I get tired. I think everybody else will agree with me on that.
Let me ask you this, because a lot of people, if you're not from Arizona, New Mexico, west of those two states, back east, it's really hard for people to understand the aura and the massiveness of desert racing. Can you put it in perspective for those folks?
Well, yeah, I think what drew me to it, and probably, I don't know, I'm assuming a lot of people for the same reason. I got involved in off-road racing back in the real early 70s, but I started reading about it in, the off-road magazines and all in the mid-60s, late 60s. But it wasn't the races as much as the adventure. I wanted the adventure of driving night and day and seeing these little towns, the San Ignacio's and the La Paz and all these places I've been reading about, and racing day and night, and in the fog, and if it rained or if it snowed or if the cattle ran in front of you. You had all these obstacles that you had to deal with, and I thought that was the ultimate form of racing because, you know, if you're racing in Indianapolis or Daytona, the odds of a cow running out in front of you are probably pretty slim. But in Mexico, it's, you know, it's an everyday occurrence. So you had to adjust to the driving that was in front of you at that time. If it got dark and foggy, then you had better learn how to deal with it. Or if it rained, or you know the tide came in. I mean, we could all of us sitting right here could write books on the things that do happen in off-road racing, and that's what drew me to it. The race, I knew about racing because I had raced go-karts, but the adventure I wanted, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it certainly does. And I have to ask you, because I've never asked you this question in all the years I've known you. Who was it, if there was anybody in particular that had a significant impact on you, either starting out or through your career, that was either a mentor, a collaborator, or a partner?
Well, you know, as I say, in the 60s and 70s, early 70s, before I actually started racing, I read about these guys. Parnelli Jones was he was just my hero, still is to this day. I mean, he could drive anything, and he raced Pikes Peak and all that. And Parnelli Jones, Walker Evans, Mickey Thompson, those guys were idols that Mickey Thompson was, to me, he didn't really race that much off-road, but he had done so much for the sport. And the things that he had done in different forms of racing, especially off-road, the Stadium Series, going to the LA Coliseum, everything that he did, I was just in awe. You know, he became a great friend, as well as Walker Evans and Parnelli Jones. So those guys, I really looked up to them and tried to emulate what they did and how I'd watch them, you know, because they were doing something right.
Well, it's certainly an honor for me to be a part of this, doing this with you this afternoon. But it's not just the two of us that are here, who we are going to bring into the fold. But before we do, we'd again like to thank Toyota Racing for presenting this remote live stream this afternoon. Also, we want to remind you, we will take some questions near the end of our 1 hour program, so you can log in and ask a question. Who knows, maybe yours will be the one or two that we'll be able to get to. So now let me bring in some of our virtual panel members. First up is Frank Arciero Jr. His friends call him Butch. And Butch is one of the most decorated drivers that ever has been involved in the sport of off-road racing. He excelled in the short course and desert, and 2 wheels and 4, and he enjoys competing to even this day. Beyond his success and frequent trips to the winner's circle, Arciero counts the lifelong friendships he's made throughout his career as one of his greatest accomplishments. And welcome, Frank. It's great to see you, Butch. Give me some thoughts and perspective on Ironman going into the Hall of Fame, what you think, and some of the memories you guys have shared.
I mean, we only have an hour. It's only an hour to talk about all this stuff. It's, you know, just being involved in first of all, doing the off-road racing, as Ivan said, I think is in my opinion, probably the most challenging of all auto racing. And I see the guys do those rally races and stuff, but I mean, they have flat grounds all the time. Here, like Ivan said, you have the obstacles from one to the next every time you're in a car. I mean, it's if it's a 500-mile race or a 1,000-mile race. But it was my pleasure. Cal gave me the opportunity. I mean, I knew Ivan raced against him, and when me and my brother started racing, you know, things were going just ourselves. We didn't really know a lot of people, and then I met Bob Gordon, and then eventually we teamed up and had a great experience together. And he actually was the first one to really get me to understand the real value in what to do, how to really drive in a race. Okay. And then when I had the opportunity to drive with Ivan, do our pre-running together, it was like night and day. I mean, it was where, my whole philosophy of how to race in a race changed after I had teamed up with him. I've got some great, we were pre-running one time, like you said. He says he was fearful when I was driving. It's just the other way around, because I knew every time Ivan was going to make a different kind of a move in that truck, either try to go sideways on a cliff area where we can go over, or going through a village. But this one time we were pre-running, It was in Lucerne Valley, and he had did his loop, and I got in the truck. Cal had gotten us an old Class 8 truck. It was a pretty good truck to pre-run in, and we were going through this area, and I get in the truck now, and I'm doing the same thing. And I remember coming up on this one road, and all of a sudden you drop off this road into a wash, and it was a pretty good drop off. And I was hauling coming up to it, and I remember where it was, and I tapped the brakes, and I went down. And I mean, Ivan's never said nothing to me in my life, but he looked at me and he says, "Great job." I go, "Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it." But I mean, out of all the racers that are in the Hall of Fame, I mean, being able to be in the Motorsports Hall of Fame really identifies off-road racing, which I think is an outstanding opportunity for off-road racing, for people in general to see what's going on. And Ivan, I think, out of all the people I've driven with and competed against, I mean, you are by far, in my opinion, probably the greatest. I mean, it was for us to race against each other, after my opportunity with Toyota, and then I went back with Bob, and we chased you down as much as we could all the time. And I know Cal was telling you in the airplane where we were and what to do and what not to do, which is not right. But we had a great time, and it was. You are by far, again, like I said, probably the greatest off-road racer I've ever been with. And congratulate you for your induction. I mean, you deserve it.
Thank you, Butch. Let me just add to that story a little bit too. But what I meant when we were racing and I rode with him, it scared me, is that here's what in that old truck that we had. Butch, the first day, Butch would pre-run, and toward the end of the day, you're playing this game where you're trying to scare the guy. He's trying to scare me a little bit. Well, he got to scare me, and then the next day, though, I get to drive. So then by about the fourth or fifth day, we're about killing ourselves trying to scare each other. but we had more fun doing it, and that's where that came from, scaring me. But I got to say, Butch, that you probably, I would say, as in stadium racing especially, all the different forms of racing we did from Riverside to Crandon and desert racing. In stadium racing, I think there probably hardly anybody that I knew that was better at stadium racing, but he was a natural at it. I was envious of how aggressive Butch could be all night long and always. And I don't think he was ever intimidated by. I never seen him be intimidated by anything. But anyway, great, Butch, and I appreciate you being here and being part of this celebration.
Oh, you're welcome. I mean, one last thing, Marty. In the pre-running that we went and we did, I mean, we probably put 50, 60,000 miles of pre-runs together, or maybe more than that, between me and Ivan. The one thing that I learned for the general public to understand off-road racing, in today's environment, is totally different. Today's environment, these guys go out, they have GPSs and everything else, and they have a big computer screen on their race truck, and they know where the course is and what the ditch is coming up. Back then, we didn't. We just took notes, mental notes, and there's no way in God's world that any one driver can memorize a 500-mile race or especially a 1,000-mile race. So we would take points. And Ivan taught me how to understand the terrain and where you were. And examples would be, like if we were going through San Felipe, going south through Portecitos, okay, we'd take the old Portecitos road, and then we jump on the pavement. And between the pavement and past the town of Portecitos, there was these big washouts, our dips for the water to dry, the rainwater to come through. And some of them were, pretty vertical. You hit those things going 100 miles an hour, you go end over end. So Ivan taught me, he says, Butch, he said, what we need to do is when you get to these areas, we'll count them. And so he says, between the time you get on the road until the last one, there's 25 of these bad dips. So you would, adjust your racing speeds to when you hit those 25. Once it gets to 26 at 25, then you can, the other ones are not bad. You can haul ass. And that's what, you pick up a couple seconds here, a couple seconds there. And you learn. And then going up to Mike's, going out of Mike's, there was one area that he says, remember, when you get up here, the ground, you notice the ground, it's kind of a tan color. Then all of a sudden, the ground turns to red. When it turns to red, be careful, because there's a couple bad turns. And if it's raining, that's like, what do you call it? It'll get slippery, extremely slippery. So, things like that. And then we would challenge each other mentally when we get to certain areas. What's coming up? And he would tell me what's coming up. He asked me what's coming up, and I would tell him. So, I mean, I appreciate all that stuff. And it was an honor and a pleasure to be able to race with him.
Well, let me bring in our next guest, Roger Norman. Now, Roger's raced in numerous off-road circuits, including SCORE and Best in the Desert, and he's won major races like the SCORE Baja 1000. And now Norman runs SCORE, and he's done a tremendous job with the organization. SCORE's growing at a tremendous clip, and Roger and Ivan go way back as competitors and friends. And everyone, please welcome Roger Norman. Roger, how about some of your memories?
Well, I'd just like to say one thing, and that is that nobody, and I mean nobody, has been as important as Ivan Ironman Stewart to the sport of off-road racing. And that goes for when he was racing, and that goes for after the time that he stopped racing. Because nobody's been, and I've known him more since he got out of racing than I did when he was racing. I was more of a spectator at that time, and my cousin was the head fool for the Baja Fools. And so I got to hear all the stories that were, about the team and everything. And that's how I kind of got into racing, was because my cousin was telling me about all the craziness down in Baja. And that's what drew me down there to actually start racing, was that my cousin was on his team as a pit crew member. And so I ended up being at one of the pit crew members before I started racing. And but I have to say that it was just incredible. Every time, when I started promoting, I started making TV shows immediately about races that weren't really very important races. But Ivan was always there, and he came to all the events, and he also narrated all the television shows, which was a lot of work. He had to fly out to Florida to do the narrations, and and I think you've been probably Grand Marshal for at least a dozen events or maybe more. And I think every single Baja 500 you've spent at the Baja 500 celebrating your birthday with us.
Yeah.
And we really appreciate that. We're coming out with a TV channel in 2 weeks that will have the whole history of Ivan Stewart on video. I bought the whole collection from Don Shoemaker, and so we also have all the raw footage, and we're going to be making stories in the future about that nobody's seen. It's footage that nobody's seen before, but we're also going to be doing that for a lot of the other champions of the sport. And we made 2 books recently, which highlighted all of the heroes of the sport. One about the Baja 500, which Ivan, I think, has almost every single page in that book. So, and then the Baja 1000 book, both books are over 400 pages and celebrating the history, which Ivan was such a major part of everything that was SCORE. SCORE and the Ironman are almost the same thing. Thank you, Ivan.
Jump in.
I was just going to jump in and tell you and just say that Roger's had SCORE now, his own SCORE, for how many years, Roger? You've had it?
About 8 years.
And he's done so much with it. He's added to the sport so much. That's what I admire. Him and Elise and his wife have put so much into it. So it's a spectacular job. Thank you, Roger, for being part of this also.
Thank you.
Well, let me bring in our next guest. As most people know, Cal Wells as a successful NASCAR and IndyCar owner. But before that, he and Ivan enjoyed record-breaking success with their PPI Motorsports off-road racing team. Overall, PPI and Toyota won close to 90 races, 11 manufacturer championships, and 3 Baja 1000s. And we say welcome to Cal Wells. And Cal, I want to put you on the spot a little bit. Give us the inside skinny on Ivan, those stories that the fan never really gets to hear about.
Well, I don't know if I have too many of those, Marty, but thank you for letting me be here. There were some comments earlier about that Butch brought up about off-road racing. And I'm confident that Robby will draft it on this too. Robby and myself, and Butch in particular, have had an opportunity to be involved in other forms of motorsport. IndyCar, NASCAR, all sorts of different stuff. Sports cars, all sorts of things. And honestly, there's at least for me, and I would guess Rob would feel the same, and Butch. But there's nothing like the Baja 1000, which really defined Ivan as far as his tenacity and his focus of all the types of racing. There's nothing that defined my experience in motorsport like racing the Baja 1000. And to have Ivan inducted into the American Motorsports Hall of Fame, and with the other icons of the sport, motorsports just in general, and I'm just across the street from the Motorsports Hall of Fame right now. Had a chance to go in and look at the display that has been erected for himself and many other icons. It's fitting that off-road gets that recognition, and it's also wonderful that starting with Mickey and Sal Fish and now Roger, who's really tugged it forward as it relates to letting people know. One of the things that really motivated Mickey Thompson to start the stadium racing is because he was racing the Baja 1000. Might have even been the year he won it. He built all these fantastic vehicles, but he actually won it in I don't know, it was a buggy of some sort. It was such a secret. People didn't really understand what all of us that were blessed to be a part of it were really attempting to accomplish. And it is still, off-road racing is not mainstream, but it's by far the most iconic type of motorsport I've ever been involved with, and the most challenging. So it's truly wonderful that Ivan and Walker before him have been recognized for their contribution to motorsport, and that off-road is the medium. Spectacular. As it relates to a story, I have had several. Butch alluded to some of the pre-runs that we enjoyed together. My best pre-run story was actually not pre-running, but coming back. I can't remember, Butch, if you flew home or what, but it was just Ivan and I. Ivan in the pickup, the yellow pickup truck that we actually bought from Joe McPherson. They were old Class 8 truck, and I was in some other kind of a vehicle. And we made it from La Paz to Ensenada in 13 hours, and we just whistled Dixie all the way up. And it was just a spectacular road race between the two. And obviously, I can't keep up with that, but it was really defining. But for racing itself, just to give you my own perspective, we built this new single seat truck. Robby was owning the desert in his F-150. I mean, just owning it. He was someone that fundamentally couldn't be beat. And when we went to the drawing board to say, what can we do? We've taken these Class 7 trucks that we kind of moved into Class 1 and Class 2. The Butch was driving the Class 2 with my dad and, at times. And Ivan, the Class 1, but they were these 4-cylinder trucks that struggled. And we just could not beat Rob and his Ford. So we built this little thing that our chassis number was 010. And we had a small engine in it, a little V6. So we had to really work on weight, work on this and work on that. And we struggled to get that thing to survive. So we went to the mid 400 when it ran north of the city. And Las Vegas Motor Speedway wasn't there yet. And it was like the Gun Club, I think is where we rented out of. Robby and Ivan will remember, I can't. But there were 400-mile loops up there. And we had come out early and we could test near Jean, Nevada. And there was this area we'd run around, and the steering was just beating the hell out of Ivan. And Robby was out there, and he was just like, he was freaking Starship. We couldn't even think about keeping up. So because Ivan couldn't hang on to it. And we worked on it, and we worked on it, and we worked on it. We had a couple of engineers, Jack Ald and Al Bodie, and they came up with it, and another gentleman named Ted Mengels that designed the vehicle. And this is our vehicle previous to the best truck we ever built, which was 015. But we'd come up with these little pills that would go into the hydraulic lines to keep the thing from kicking back. And I remember at the end of the day, and we had to put 120 miles on this thing. And Ivan said, I think we've got it. I think that's it. And I was struggling even to believe him. I just thought, oh, he's just sick and tired of driving this thing. He's done. He's just had it. And he's trying to give me a placebo so I can sleep tonight. And we went back, we tore the whole thing down. And I remember sitting with my dad in a pickup truck because it was cold and windy outside. And we rebuilt the whole truck in the parking lot of whatever hotel we were at. And I said, Dad, if we can't get this thing to finish, I don't know if I'm going to be able to survive this. I mean, financially, I've shoved all the chips in. So the next day, my uncle used to fly us, Linda, Ivan's wife, and my uncle John used to fly us in a plane that my uncle had. And we'd chase. And we were in North Las Vegas. I'm sure Linda will remember this. And the wind was whistling. I mean, absolutely howling. And the single seaters, because the two seaters had been so fast and the pickup trucks were so fast, we had to start behind the two seaters, and we were 60 something off the line. We couldn't go up. We couldn't take off. Neither Linda or John felt it was safe, my Uncle John. So we waited. And of course, we didn't have all the relays and balloons and, all the stuff that you have nowadays. It was archaic in comparison as far as communication goes. And we finally were able to take off. And I was calling out, trying to reach out. Hey, where's Ivan at? Where's Ivan at? And I got a call from the top of the course. It was just this big, long 400 loops. And he said, he's through here. I said, where is he out on the road? Because we want to try and catch up with him. He's third car on the road. And I said, we can't be third car. That's not possible. He hasn't pissed 60 guys. Well, the wind had created this cross section. And there were these big ditches that were kind of like Butch had described earlier, these vados in Mexico. But the truck was just the right length and just where he could jump them. And I couldn't believe it. And the only guys we couldn't catch was Bob and my dad and Butch, and they were switching off. And I remember we caught Butch, what was that, maybe the end of the third lap, I think, of that 4-lap race, give or take a little bit. But yeah, anyway, they were the only guys we really struggled, and it was a miracle. We actually won that damn race, and I'll never forget it because it was a huge turning point for PPI, my company that ran Ivan, and of course he ran the whole thing by himself. But it was like God had just come down and said, "Okay, we're going to let this thing survive today," and it was a tremendous defining moment. Winning the Baja 1000 was great, and winning all the 500s and all of the races that we won. But that to me was a huge turning point in our program, and a glorious day.
Ivan, was it a defining moment for you?
No, it wasn't. A lot of the races just become mixed up to me, and I know what one he's talking about, but there's so many, it's hard to distinguish the points where he's talking about. But I just want to say about Cal is that, the success that I've had in off-road racing is due to a lot to Cal Wells. I've never met anybody that was more dedicated and hardworking, and just unbelievably. If I could ask him for anything, all the years that I drove probably 6 or 7 race cars that Cal and his company PPI built, and I don't ever remember. And I know a lot of times he didn't have any money, but anything I'd ask him for, he never once says, no, I can't get it. He says, I'll get it. You want this? I'll get it for you. And he was always just 110% behind me. And just, he had the ability to hire engineers and people that were second to none. How he did it, where he found them, I don't know. But Cal, thank you so much for being a huge part of my career and success, because your hard work and determination is what led the way for us.
Blessing for me.
Well, we want to bring in the captain of that starship that Cal was referring to, our final member of our group today, and that's, of course, Robby Gordon. Robby excelled in NASCAR, kart, IndyCar, Trans Am, IMSA, IROC, the Dakar Rally, anything that had 4 wheels. He's still actively racing in the top tier of off-road motorsports. He also competes in the Stadium Super Trucks, a series that he formed back in 2013, and whose championships he won twice in 2013 and 14. He also operates the Speed family of brands, including Speed Energy, that has sponsored his racing efforts since 2010. And Robby, everybody keeps talking about how wicked you are on the racetrack and nobody wants to ride with you. And I know you tried to get me to ride with you, and I said no, especially after hearing Russ Wernemont and his last story when he climbed out of the truck when you scared the bejesus out of him, and he was your crew chief.
Well, hey, thanks for having me on tonight. And Ivan, congratulations getting in the Motorsports Hall of Fame. It was a pleasure and an honor to start my career as your teammate. You were the utmost professional, extremely competitive guy that obviously taught me a lot when I was driving those Toyota Stadium trucks. And Cal Wells, I would put Ivan and Cal as and Butch. It's quite crazy that 3 guys in the show tonight were very influential in my career as well. And obviously having a teammate to compete against, like with Ivan, he made me raise my game as well. And I want to thank them for that opportunity, but congratulate them at the same time for Motorsport Hall of Fame. It's great for motorsports. And man, the good times we had back in TEG, and obviously the desert races together and competed against each other, and how much fun that was. You guys made us raise our game for sure.
Marty, I wanted to take a minute too. Robbie, you know that, I've told the story. I'm so proud to tell the story that we were teammates for 1 year. I think it was only 1 year for what I remember. You went on into IMSA or someplace, so the former racing, but just to have you as teammates has always been special. And, and I don't think anybody that in motorsports would disagree that I think probably today, Robbie's probably one of the greatest drivers and versatile that can drive just about, in fact, anything that's out there. Obviously, I want to commend you on your success and your career and everything that you've done. I mean, you've got to be extremely proud of that. Now your son Max is racing also, so that's got to be fantastic for you. But congratulations to you, and I'm really proud to have you as part of. You've known your dad, obviously, Bob, and you and watch you grow up with our kids and be in Riverside out there playing in the little dirt. Oh, I know what I was going to tell a story about Robbie that. Butch will remember this story, maybe Cal will, but in Riverside was the World Championships of off-road racing that Mickey Thompson put on, but all of us guys would stand up on the fence and watch the practices. And Robbie be standing there, he was probably 16 years old at the time, and we'd be thinking about, hey, Butch, you think you could double those particular jumps, or can you triple those, or what do you think? And Butch says, I don't know, man. I don't know. That's a long ways. Bob Gordon to be standing there and say, hey, Robbie, come here. You think you could double those jumps? I don't know, Dad. I'll do it. I'll give it a try. He'd go out there and jump them. He was like no fear, probably the same way. Isn't that right, Cal?
Oh, my God. Incredible. And then once he set that bar, everyone else had to meet it. And
well, you had to jump it. If he could do it, everybody had to do it if you're going to be competitive.
Exactly.
It's your fun times, though, wasn't it, Robbie?
No, great times at Riverside. I love what Roger's doing with SCORE and keeping alive. You are truly the grandfather of the Baja, and you've set so many goals for so many of us to compete at the level you set, and ultimate professional all the time. And the team that you and Cal had with Toyota was awesome. And to be honest, there has not been a team like that since PPI has not been in the desert. You guys set the standard, and you made us all step up our games for sure.
Guys, I want to jump in here now that we've got everybody on the roundtable. Before we started this webcast at 3 o'clock Eastern, you guys were sharing some stories, and it's those behind-the-scenes stuff that I think a lot of the people tuned in would love to rehash. So, Butch, I'm going to get you going first. Go back to a couple of those stories that you were sharing with us right before we came on.
Oh, geez. Well, I mean, just like as I said, pre-running with him was something else. There, one good story was, I remember we did the 1,000. Okay, when I was driving a 2-series, me and Bob, but I was still pre-run. Cal allowed me to still pre-run with Ivan, and I remember Cal was saying to us, "Hey guys, we're going to do this. It's a point to point. It's from Ensenada all the way down to La Paz." He says, "You guys do the first 2 times you go pre-running, you pre-run during the day." So we would pre-run down to Ignacio, sleep at Ignacio, get up the next morning, and go all the way to La Paz. So the 3rd time, Cal came down and said, "Okay, so we're going to simulate the race." So once we get down, we figure by the time you guys get to Ignacio, it's going to be dark. So again, we were alternating driving. So we go down the 3rd time, and in between that 3rd time, we got a call that said that there was an area down out of Ignacio when you get down into the beach or along the coast there, that there's a different route you're allowed to take. So me and Ivan said to ourselves, okay, we're going to bring some stakes with the reflectors on it, so we know where this area is. So we go down there and we see where the area is. We make the turn. We put them down. So now we go back, drive all the way back. We coming out of Ignacio, and now we're going to go down and meet Cal in Constitucion. So we take off, and we're driving. I'm driving. My turn driving. Go all the way down, and we see where the Honda pit used to be, and we have the reflector. We make a left there because we didn't want to go. What happened was it was a full. I think at that time it was a full moon, so the ocean, we were coming up, and if we go through those mud flaps, we might get stuck in the water. So we go down, make this left turn, go down, and we see the reflector. We'll make a right turn, and then there was another reflector. Well, we couldn't find it. The cows that were down there knocked it down. So I says, okay. Ivan says, okay, turn left here, turn left here. So we make a left turn, and we take off, and now we're going, and we're going straight, and I'm saying to myself, Ivan, I says, something's wrong here. I says, I'm looking to the left, and I'm saying that's the ocean, and it's darker than hell. And he says, no, that's not the ocean. He says, you don't know what the hell you're doing. I said, so we kept going for about 7-8 miles, and we couldn't find no ribbons, no nothing. So Ivan says, well, I think we're lost. So all of a sudden, as we're going, we said, okay, let's go another couple miles. As we're going the next couple miles, we're kind of making a sweeping right-hand turn. I mean, it's really, you got to understand when you get down there, and it's really weird. You don't know. It's so dark and so pitch black. You don't really know if you're going straight or if you're turning. It's like when you're in an airplane, you get through the clouds. You don't know if you're upside down or right side up. Anyhow, we make this sweeping right-hand turn, and now I'm driving, and I'm saying, oh, here's a ribbon. I see the ribbon on the right side. I see another ribbon. I said, okay, we're back on the course. So he's looking at me, and he's kind of, so I'm going, and I'm not even remembering the ribbons have to be on the left side. Okay, that's where they're usually marked. So I see this next. It's a stake. So I stop. I say, Ivan, get out and see what that is. He jumps out, looks at it, jumps back in the truck, and he says, "Let's go." So I take off, and I'm going. And he's laughing so hard, Marty. Look at him now. He's got tears coming down his eyes. I mean, he's so blurry he couldn't see out the window because he was crying so much. Finally, he tells me to stop. And I stop. And he says, I said, what's the matter? He says, Butch, he says, we're on the course. I said, well, good. He said, but we're going backwards. We're going back and forth. So I turn around and we go back out and go back to where we're going. We find where the thing was, and then we ended up in Constitucion where Cal is. But I mean, it's stuff like that. It was just constant things that we did during the course of pre-running that was funnier than hell. I tell you, it was great. But that one there was, I mean, I had him laughing so hard, and I couldn't understand what the hell he was laughing about.
What about you?
Well, no, that's every time you tell a story, somebody will tell a story reminds me of another one. But I remember when I think Panasonic was our sponsor, and the CDs had just come out, and I knew Cal had this sample CD that sounded just like a helicopter.
Oh shit!
Remember that, Cal? You and your dad were waiting for us down at the end of the wash. So Butch and I are pre-running, heading down toward Cal, and I know Cal's got this Panasonic. I mean, Butch didn't know about it, but anyway, the helicopter was they were playing this helicopter music, and he keyed the mic so we could hear the helicopter, and I knew what it was right away, but Butch didn't, and it sounded like a helicopter that was way off in the distance, getting closer and closer. And Butch says, damn, you hear that? Is that a helicopter? I said, yeah, it sounded like it. And I looked out and said, yeah, it's right above us. It's getting closer and closer. And Butch says, damn, it's going to hit us. I had him going for a long time. He's not sure that thing was going to land right on top. You remember that, Cal?
I do.
You guys had that?
That's funny.
I remember that. And the funny part, Marty, is I thought it was right there above us. And he's telling me it's above us. So I'm strapped in. So I loosen my belts to try and look out to see if I can see the helicopter. And knowing Ivan, he moves over in this wash and these trees. I swear to God, man, if he would have moved over 2 more inches, that tree would have taken my head off. I was trying to look out to see it, and he's laughing. He's got tears down his eyes, laughing again. But it was real.
But you can finish the story too. But they're almost in the same place where your race truck broke down.
Oh,
and it almost burned up. And it was all in the same area in that same wash, Matomi Wash.
No, that wash, the wash that we had the helicopter was coming down, and we were going to Tres. What was that? Right out of not Tres Pozos, but up the street from where the road comes in. You turn right to San Felipe. That the other wash was coming out there.
Oh, okay.
Matomi is where the other one happened.
Yeah. Well, you had
for McPherson in the Class 4 truck. I made it through up all the way down to Matomi, and evidently there was a line, I don't know, an oil line or something that broke and it caught fire. The truck caught fire and it just about burnt down. I mean, I had stopped everybody, got their fire extinguishers, put the fire. We finally got it out, after about 2 hours. And the following year, we did the same thing. The race was now a loop race, and we were coming back, going through the same wash. So me and Ivan are pre-running. I had my wife Betty with me, and I'm in Albert's pre-runner, Blazer, and he's in his truck, and he has a rider from San Diego with him. And we're going down that wash, and Ivan's taking off, and he's way out in front of me. I'm going, and all of a sudden, the Blazer just goes, just stops. I'm on the phone, and it's nighttime, and I'm really spooky anyhow. So I says, Ivan, you got a copy. Ivan, you got a copy. And he wouldn't answer. I said, Ivan, you got to, and I start cussing. Ivan, you got a copy. Finally, I can hear him laughing. So I said, yeah, what's that? I said, something wrong with the truck because you come back. Because he turns around and he comes back. We're looking at it. We go underneath and find out that the electric fuel pump and the ground wire had come off. So we put it back on. So before we get back in, Marty, I swear to God, I'm looking. And I looked at Ivan, and I started, and I'm looking up and see if there's somebody in heaven coming down. Right to the right of my truck, okay? Right against the bank, there's 7 fire extinguishers, okay? Right exactly, the exact spot that the Class 4 burnt down the prior year. And he's laughing his head off, man. He's just laughing, and I'm saying, you got to come help me, please. Help me.
And you've avoided that space ever since, right? Okay.
Exactly.
Hey, one more person I want to share a message from. He's not able to join us. He's overseas enjoying an off-the-grid experience, but wanted to make sure he could give us a few words. This is a message from your old buddy, Ivan Walker Evans, and I know you know that name very well. Here's what he said. He said, hello, Ivan. Congratulations on being inducted in the Motorsports Hall of Fame of America. It is the greatest organization, and you definitely deserve being in it. I am so happy that they are now inducting some off-road guys into it as well as the asphalt guys and the IndyCar guys. We consider ourselves very lucky to be a part of them in this great organization. I remember you always won the most in the Baja 500s and left the Baja 1000s for me. Thank you very much for that. You are always the greatest competitor, Walker Evans. So even the competition continues in his congratulatory note there, Ivan.
He's become a great friend, and him and Parnell, and you guys too. You guys are the best of the best. I mean, to be on the same screen with you guys is fantastic. With Walker's become a real friend over the years, and Phyllis, his wife, again, is like I say, is Parnelli.
While we've got a chance, let's take a little bit of time to talk about the industry as a whole. Roger, you've done so much with SCORE. Robby's doing so much with his Super Truck Series. It has changed literally the entire off-road landscape. I mean, I remember we first took our cameras back to Wisconsin back in the late 90s. And before that, the really only short course race that was well known was Riverside. And now look at all this. And, the whole industry has just exploded over the last 20, 30 years.
It certainly has. And, at this point, it's kind of funny because during COVID, our type of racing, we can't sell seats. So everything's free and the people go wherever they want. But that actually works out great during this time of COVID. Because everybody can be separated over 1,000 miles of race course. So it's a good time right now for SCORE, to be able to still have races during times like this.
Robby, any comments from your end of it?
Well, it's really hard to believe if you think about it. You look back at the off-road industry as a whole, and you start with the Bajas that originally started, and you look at what the industry is today. Obviously, with COVID, people have been more outdoors. With more outdoors, you look at the vehicles that have been built over the years, and Baja style off-road racing can contribute to about 400,000 vehicles a year being sold today. If you look at the UTV market, it's really what Ivan started and all the guys started with Baja. And I'm going to say that got the ball rolling. And now off-road continues to grow yearly. You look at, it used to be not used to, it's always been, you have the professionals and you got a group of 25 to 40 really professional race teams. And then you have a bunch of racers out there having fun. And even today in the off-road series, both, Score, Best in the Desert, UTV World Championships, almost 50% of the vehicles are these little vehicles that are behind me here at the UTVs. You're getting 100 cars to show up and compete for a Baja 1000 of UTVs, which is really cool. And I think that guys like Ivan, got the ball rolling. Obviously, everybody, we were all kids. We played Ivan, Ironman, Stewart off-road. Between that and Mickey Thompson, they got it going. And now it's a big wheel of off-road enthusiasts that continue to grow every year.
Marty, I had a question for Robby, too. It's been 20 years since I've driven a trophy truck and raced one anyway. But it seems to me these guys are driving harder and harder, not only going faster, obviously. All the race cars eventually all go faster, but it seems like they're running harder, just on the gas, just harder than I ever remember having to go. Is that true, that you have to drive harder now?
Well, what it's come down to, and, this is something that, other off-road racers will look at me like I have three eyes when I say this. But I truly wish Roger would just get rid of the GPSs because we're at a point now that I don't drive by the truck. I drive by what my navigator says. And if he says 10 degree right over the top of a rise, we're 10 degrees right over the top of the rise at 120 miles an hour. It's not 10 degrees right over the top of the rise. Oh, I think it might be 10 degrees rise. I'm going to lift up to about 70 or 80. Now, if you don't hold it wide open and the trucks are getting so reliable, somebody's going to make it through, as we've seen with the Impudias and a couple of these other guys. And I'm sure Butch can contend with Ryan. The GPSs have truly changed the game of off-road. And it's really almost the point of how brave are you? Because the cars are getting reliable enough we can beat them all day long.
I have one more question, Robby. If I agree with you, and that was, as I was saying earlier, one of the real things that attracted me to off-road racing was the adventure of it. And the GPS has taken all that away. Not all of it, but I mean, as far as, knowing where all the places are, it's not going to tell you where the cattle's crossing the road. But you never hear anybody getting lost anymore. I mean, those days are gone. Plus, the speeds have gone way up. I think it's a great idea. But somebody's going to come back to Roger Norman and say, "Oh no, it's safety. We got to have, we got to."
Well, it's not so much right now. It's not so much for safety as it is for environmental reasons. And that's why we have like 350 virtual checkpoints on the race course where the vehicles have to be on course. And the GPS actually helps people stay on course. And when the people are on course, they're also insured, which is really important that everybody has liability insurance while they're racing. And, if you don't have GPS, then people are more likely to be off course a lot of the time.
Well, I'm not saying you can't have GPS. It would just be nice to eliminate it out of the passenger seat.
Well, I agree.
Let me jump in here, guys, because we're starting to run close on time. And I wanted to let everybody at home know that there is a special offer from the Motorsports Hall of Fame in the merchandise department. There on your screen, you can see if you log on to mshfmerch.com, and if you use the code word Toyota, anything that you purchase, you get a 20% discount. Again, it's mshfmerch, merch.com, and code word is Toyota. Well, this brings us to the point where hopefully we've had some questions sent in to us by some of the people that are out there watching. So, Sam, if you want to put one up on the screen and we'll see what we've got. The question from Tony for Ivan: what is your greatest Baja memory or accomplishment?
I think, your first Baja 500 win was special. 1,000 was special. The Mint 400, a lot of people don't know the Mint as well as the 1,000, but winning those are really special. I think the fact for me that I could do this for a living, when I realized that I could actually make a living off-road racing. I mean, there are so many special things that have that has happened to me. One of the things that has nothing to do with it was really special. Lynn Arciero made this happen for me, the lady that owns the studio here. Got me a ride with the Blue Angels for an hour. That was really special, but because of off-road racing. But you know, I think, and I say all the time, it's the people, the friends that I've had over the years, and the friends I continue to meet, the fans that I meet. They're all special. You know, it's just hard to pin it down to one thing. Winning races is great, but there's more to it than that. You know, you realize that. Being inducted into the Hall of Fame, and that's Motorsports Hall of Fame, is certainly special. And I think it's kind of funny. I'm sure you guys and everybody that's involved in races, when you get involved in whatever form of racing it is, I don't think you start off as, hey, this is gonna be my first race and I'm gonna get in the Motorsports Hall of Fame. I mean, that takes a long time. First, you just want to drive a race car, and then you just want to win a race, and then maybe I could win a championship. Gosh, if I could win that other race, then pretty soon you build up where you've got enough, you know, credibility to where somebody's going to vote you in for the Hall of Fame. But all of them are special. Motorsports Hall of Fame, Toyota, to drive for Toyota for the amount of years that I have, the friends, Toyota Racing Development that build all of our motors, and when we're racing with Cal and Toyotas, all those people are special memories.
We've got another question I want to slide in here. We'll get it shot up onto the screen. Do you think we will ever see OEM factory participation come back like we saw in the 90s?
I'd sure like to think so. I mean, you know, I don't know. The difficulty with off-road racing is such a spectacular form of motorsports. It's just hard to quantify, and Roger will know this, and Cal knows for sure with all the different forms of racing he's been involved in, is who's watching, what's, you know, what age group, what, you know, everything you need to know to bring in big sponsors and television. It's just hard to quantify them. You know, I don't know. I'd certainly hope so. I mean, I think we helped Toyota demonstrate how tough and reliable their trucks were, and it sure helped them. They sure sold a lot of trucks, I think, because of what we did in those days with Butch and Robby but I don't know. I hope so. I don't know. Be interesting. Robby, what do you think? It'd be interesting to know what you think. Will you always see that?
I think what Roger's doing, I think the television package he has put together with ABC has been very good for the sport the last couple of years. I think with what we're doing with Stadium Super Trucks and bringing it to places that are at Long Beach Grand Prix, you know, yes, they're not off-road, but then it gets people to look at off-road. And it says, okay, well, these things, you know, we just brought our off-road trucks here, kind of like what Mickey did back in the day. You know, you have to bring the desert to where people can watch it. But I think, you know, the collaboration between the two with what he's doing with SCORE and their social media, what we're doing, and then what all the teams are doing, I believe there is opportunity. I know that, you know, Ford's been involved with some stuff recently that's looking pretty promising, pretty exciting. You know, I want to make sure before I get cut off today that I thank Toyota for the times in the sport. You know, they've done so much for off-road racing. Back in the Mickey Thompson, that was my first professional manufacturer that I was ever involved with. So I think you know, Toyota has been wonderful for off-road, and I know they stick their toes in it every once in a while. It's good to see them still playing in the sport as well.
Guys, we've got two more questions as we're getting close on our time. We'll pop the question up on the screen. This person would like to know if Ivan or the others would have liked to have competed in the races like the Targa Florio between cities in Europe before World War II. Wow, that's taking us back. Ivan?
Well, you know, I don't really know that much about that race. I do know about the Paris Dakar, and I always wanted to race in the Paris Dakar. But that was probably the one that I wanted. The other race I'm not that familiar with. I know of it, and I've also heard of it. But no, that wouldn't have been for me. More the Paris Dakar was something I think would have fit my style.
Were you familiar with that race, Cal?
Oh yeah, as a historian of the sport, for sure. It would have been spectacular. But that was I'm going to draft in behind Ivan, and Robby's done this, been very successful at Paris Dakar. In multiple continents, he's been successful. That would be the race. If I had a shot to do one thing that I haven't been able to do, would be that.
We've got one more question. We'll pop it up on the screen for everybody to see. And it's from Willie. And were you better than Robby, or was Robby better than you, Ivan?
I can answer. I think Robby had much more natural talent than I did. I had to work at it, and stadium racing, Butch was much better, and Robby both much better than myself, I think, in stadium racing. I didn't really like tearing the cars up and running that hard and tearing fenders off, and that's not my excuse, but I just wasn't a natural at it. But desert racing was always fit my style, and that was probably my strong point, that I had a feeling for the cars and ability not to make mistakes with them. The biggest thing with desert racing, not make mistakes. Stadium and other forms of motorsports are much more, you pay the penalty in desert racing for a mistake, so it was important not to. But I'd say Robby's better than I was by a long ways.
See,
not a long ways.
I'm going to go the other way, and I'm going to say I'm just Robby Gordon, and that's the Ironman.
Well said, Robby. Well said. Hey, we're really getting tight on time. I want to give everybody a chance for closing thoughts, and Ivan, I'll save you till last. Butch, you want to go first?
Sure. Again, congratulations to Ivan for what he's done. But I think there's one more aspect that people don't look into about Ivan. He was great in off-road racing. He did an outstanding job. He represented the sport, and he still represents the sport, which is huge to a lot of young people, everybody I know that would talk about it. But one other thing he's done is he was instrumental in getting funds for an orphanage in Guadalupe, which is right above Ensenada. And every year he'd put on a motorcycle ride down there and generated tons of dollars and cents for the orphanage. So, I mean, it was not only what he did for the sport, but he gave back to the sport, especially down there. And he's done a lot of stuff like that over the years, which I think was really outstanding.
Roger?
Well, yeah, I'd like to remind everybody that, trophy trucks began with Sal Fish creating the trophy truck class, which was basically completely unlimited trucks. And Ivan won in his final 6 years of racing. He won 9 overall events. And that's pretty incredible. That's at the top of the sport. He was giving Robby a run for his money.
Robby, final thoughts?
I mean, like I said, he is the Ironman, and it was a true honor to be his teammate. You've had a wonderful ride with Toyota your whole time. You've been very loyal, and you're great for the sport. And congratulations on Motorsports Hall of Fame. Well deserved.
And Cal?
Seldom do you have the opportunity to work with an icon in any industry. And it was, Ivan, it was and remains an honor to have worked with someone that actually made PPI, made the careers of hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people in our little company. You defined excellence in a way that few can. Your tenacity and commitment to perfection was unparalleled. And that was a blessing for Toyota. It was a blessing for all of us that have had the pleasure of your friendship, the camaraderie, and the competition with and against each other. An honor.
Ivan?
Well, I just like to thank you guys for being a part of this celebration and being a part of my induction into the Hall of Fame. But I'm so fortunate again. I can only say the same thing, and I've had a life of a dream. I mean, it's the things that I've been able to do, and the people I've met, the friends that I've got with you guys and fans. It's I'm so blessed and so happy, and looking forward to the induction, which will be, Marty, by the way, it's going to be in September of this year.
Yes, sir.
In Pontiac, Michigan. If anybody that's watching would love to come, love to have you and come and join us.
Yeah, I have one more, and I just like to ask is, every day I go to my refrigerator and I open it up, and I don't have any trophies in it. I mean, I remember you had so many trophies at one point. They opened up the refrigerator, it was full of trophies.
Good memory, Rob.
I'm still looking for a place to put them, Robbie.
Great way to end it. Thanks, Robby. And from a personal standpoint, it was my honor to cover your career both as a driver and then sharing the broadcast booth with you as we did a lot of off-road racing shows for ESPN. And I want to thank everybody for taking the time to be here, and for you out there for submitting your questions and for tuning in with us. And we will be back next month with another surprise hero of horsepower as part of our new series. Everyone out there, stay safe, stay healthy. We'd like to again thank our presenting sponsor, Toyota Racing, for today's webcast. You all have a great afternoon. Till we meet again, I'm Marty Reid.